man, the GTOs at that time, they just stood out like crazy because of their fashion.
I know.
Did you make your own clothes then?
Yes, I made a lot of my own clothes, but I used vintage, fabrics and old lace doilies and, things like that. Attachments to, make them shine. Way before anyone else thought of doing that stuff.
But back then, you guys stood out because nobody was wearing that stuff, right?
No. We took all the rock stars that we hung out with to the one store. It was the Glass Farmhouse out on Sunset. The only store. I remember the lady named Helen who ran it. She had some vision, man. And also Sue Vito's wife.
Yes.
She had a little shop under where they lived. She had a store, and she was selling some vintage clothes there and putting them together. And she was very inspiring. At that time, vintage was turn of the century and 20s flapper dresses and stuff. So we got to wear versions of those kind of clothes and velvet wraps and it was unparalleled.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, a lot of the things were very skimpy. Everything was sheer, a lot of sheer. Threw my bra away, as a feminist and all that. So
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, we were way ahead of that stuff.
So, the legacy of Frank Zappa, okay, in 1968, he was, like we had mentioned, he was pretty much the top of the mountain as far as his genre and his world that he created.
Well, he created that genre.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it was the freak scene, and people wanted to be freaky. It was the only time ever, well, certainly in the last several hundred years, that you could freak out. And he invented that phrase and that term. It was so I went from hippie to flower child to freak, and I was so thrilled to finally align with the freaks because we stood out more than any of the others.
Yeah.
And we weren't passive like hippies or meek like flower children. We wanted to just do it all. You know?
The hippie scene is just so, famous now, the Woodstock generation and the whole Woodstock thing. How different was the freak scene between 65 and 69, than that?
100%.
And what was happening in San Francisco,
No, people didn't wash themselves there. I remember going to a commune. I think I needed to find Haight-Ashbury and get it in my bloodstream. And I stayed in a commune and everything was stinky. And people weren't bathing. And there were pubic hairs in the sink. And I said, this is not for me. I want to be clean. So then the flower child thing happened. And then I met Frank and the freak scene, Vito. And I became a freak, proudly. Freak flag flying.
Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to cause attention. I wanted people to see there was another way of living, too. Because we were coming out of a very uptight time. 50s, I mean, thank God for Elvis, but it was very strict compared to certainly the freak scene, and I wanted that freedom, freedom to express, which Frank really encouraged. He was so great pulling stuff out of people like no other. Like you wanted to make his eyes shine, you wanted to make him laugh and do this, which he would do, and so you'd say almost anything. So he would dig deep, and you would come out with pretty amazing stuff, and then we turned those into songs.
Right,
He
which
asked
ended
us
up
to write
being
songs.
the
Permanent Damage.
the great Permanent Damage album. Yeah, what an experience that must have been having your own record.
It's impossible to describe what that was like.